So last time it was Q&A. This time it's A the Q's. Are you with me? Let's do this. Woo! Hey everybody, David aka RVJedeye, and this is the moment I've been waiting for. It's answering your questions. Last time I posted a video asking you to post some questions, and I got a really good response. Several people asking several different questions. Some I had to edit down just for the time of this video. I'm not a big, huge, long video kind of person, but I wanted to try and answer everybody. So everybody who sent in a question, I'm at least answering part of that question, and then maybe at some point I'll go back and answer some more. So I grouped them in a couple of different sections, and as I go through everything, you'll kind of get the flavor for it. Let's not wait any longer. Let's get straight to the questions. So the first two questions coming from Delta S and Cheryl Schupel. Delta S asks, since your move, how many weekend getaways have you planned? Do you ever just get in the RV and go without planning? And Cheryl's question kind of ties into this as well. Hey David, hope you are doing well. Thought I'd ask about your planning. How far out do you reserve campsites, and do you do much spontaneous, just showing up at a campground? So for me, I usually plan everything because I have to schedule my time off and things like that. So I will kind of look for stuff on a regular basis all the time, thinking, oh, maybe I want to go here one time, maybe I want to go here. So then when I get some time off and I know, okay, I'm going to have 4 days here, let me kind of go through my list and I'll plan. Here in Wisconsin, which is kind of interesting, so far I've done a lot of state park camping. So I go on the Wisconsin DNR site, look at a state park, see if there's some availability, and obviously because of COVID-19 and everything that's going on, availability has been kind of hard, but then I will look for a site that I want to drive to, and right now I'm staying within about a 2-hour radius, so I try to find something within 2 hours, book a site, and go. So that's how I do it right now. I would love to be a little bit more spontaneous if I can, but just scheduling everything, it just makes it hard to do it that way. Next question coming from Elaine Maglacane. I think that's how you pronounce it. Are there apps or websites that you use to find campgrounds that you'd recommend? Well, for me, I used to use ReserveAmerica.com. That was my favorite app, especially down in Florida. It allowed me to not only get state parks, but any Good Sam parks. I'm a member of Good Sam, so that was a good thing for me. I also used it to find other campgrounds, or actually probably look at more campgrounds, because I don't really do a lot of what I call glamping. So I didn't use it much for glamping. But ReserveAmerica.com, I'll put a link in the description before, which is really good. And then Recreation.gov. That was another one because they have Army Corps of Engineer sites, and I love staying in an Army Corps of Engineer place. I looked here, and I can use that app up here, so we'll see how that works kind of moving forward. The next question coming from Darson Hurston. I hope I'm saying that one correctly. They ask, we like RV parks that have nice views but don't stack the RV spots on top of each other. What are your favorite parks that give you lots of space for your spot, yet still have great things to see and do? Well, for me, I really love state parks. I like to get into a state park that is kind of wooded and kind of you have your own little site. And, you know, if you want to walk out from your site, you can see other folks who are camping, go and meet up with some folks, and they have great hiking. So for me, that's what I look for. I agree with you. I'm not a big kind of let's pack everybody in like sardines and just have everything happen, because it gets very loud at night. And for me, again, you know, I don't mind campfires. I hear things, you know, folks hanging out and things like that. But I don't want a quiet night when I go to sleep. And so for me, I look for a place that has good separation in terms of the spots. And depending on where you are camping, if you're using reserveamerica.com, a lot of the places that they have, you'll be able to see the sites. Some in the recreation.gov, you can see some of the sites. What I found here in Wisconsin, they do a pretty good job of kind of surveying all of their state parks, so you get a sense of what the spot is going to look like and what your neighbors are going to look like. But I agree. I love being kind of separated out when I am RVing. This next question coming from RV Pastor Kevin, and he asks, going from year-round camping in Florida to now what I suppose is a short-term camping season in Wisconsin, do you think you will venture south some in the fall or winter to stay out on the road? I'd love to say yes. I have a job here, so I have to stay here, and getting free time to get away from that is difficult. I may try to go south in Wisconsin for as long as I can before the snow comes, but for right now, I'm staying kind of put and exploring when I can get out, and I try to do that as much as possible. Veronica Harris asks,
actually, looking back, I think it's Veronique.
what are your travel plans or RV during the cold months in Wisconsin? What modifications might you consider in order to make it more comfortable? Great question. I don't know what my plans are going to totally be. Obviously, I don't want to drive in the snow, so that's one thing. I'm not real comfortable with that. I have an indoor storage unit, so I'll keep my RV there. I'll try to do some work on it while it's cold, maybe bring in a heater and spend some time doing things like that. But for me, I'm going to try and push it right up until the final months or the final weeks before snow comes, and try to continue to get out there and explore. In terms of what I'll do inside, well, I'm going to bust out my comforter. I have one that is a down-filled comforter, and I'll have that. I have some small electric heaters that I'll use in the rig, but this will be my first time getting through all of this, so we'll have to see how it all shakes out. Love this name, Old Lady Angler. She asked the question, hi, David. Have you done much off-grid style of RV camping, BLM camping? Thank you. I have not done any BLM camping. I've read about it, and obviously when I first got into RVing and I was looking all over on YouTube for information about RVing, I saw a lot of BLM camping information. I watch a lot of videos of RVers who go out and do that as well. I have not had the opportunity to, but I am looking forward to one day trying it out. It sounds like a great program, and it's really nice that the government does it. This one coming from Acme Racing, and he asked, what kind of video equipment do you use? Well, believe it or not, 95% of everything that I do is just on my iPhone. Yep. I use an iPhone to shoot almost everything. I do have a little small GoPro, actually a fake GoPro, that I will use, and I can use it in water. It's a little action cam. You know, it's okay. It's got some housing. I can take it underneath the water, and that's good. But again, most of what I do is straight through my iPhone. I really try to pay a close attention to how I'm framing everything, how I'm lighting everything. The audio is really good on these things, so that's what I use. I use my iPhone to shoot everything, and then recently, about a year ago, I upgraded to a MacBook Pro, so that's where I edit. My process before was I would shoot on my iPhone, do a rough cut in iMovie there, transfer it to my Toshiba laptop, and then just use the Microsoft Movie program there, assemble it, and then post it up on the web. So that's how I got into it. That's the way it started for me. Now I work all Mac, but just iPhone and MacBook Pro. I would like to maybe someday upgrade to a more vlogger-friendly camera, but right now I think the iPhone is doing a great job, and I'll continue to use it. Next question, Linda the Hermit. What was the most difficult problem to overcome in your RV history, and could you deal with it more effectively now, or was it just something experience doesn't help? This is a tough one. For me, it is a two-pronged approach. It was actually buying my first RV and my second RV as the more difficult thing in my RV history, and it's also the best thing in my RV history. Let me clarify. I think when you get into RVing, you want to try and experience it, you want to try and figure it out, you really want to see what kind of rig fits what you're going to do. Initially, I got into a Class C, loved the Class C, everything about it, with the exception of the corner cut bed. And I've said this several times, I hated the corner cut bed. So I, kept in touch with my RV dealer, and then they found this, which was a Class A, still small, 29 feet, but it had two slide outs. And that was a big thing because it allows to have a queen size bed in the back, and I can walk around it, and that was really important for me. So I went through two RVs pretty quickly, getting both of them, instead of maybe spending the time to really research and maybe try out an RV to find out what I need or don't need. Right now, I think this is a pretty good RV for me. I still like the slide outs. It's 29 feet. It's not bad. It's a Class A, so there's a lot of space. I do think about a Class B with maybe a slide out there that still gives you a queen size bed. So the good and the bad, I probably spent more money than I needed to on two RVs, rather than trying to find and circle in on the right RV the first time. Camping Theory asks, and this is a pretty easy one, what was your best and worst camping experience? The best camping experience I have ever had is anytime I'm at water. I really love being at a beach. If I can see the water, if it's a river, if it's a lake, if it's an ocean, I really love being near water. It's just something for me, for my soul. I've had a couple of really good places that I've gone to in the past, where I was really near the water. You could hear the ocean, and it just felt really, really good. So for me, it's any place that has water. As far as a bad place, or it was just a location that was not good for me. Ironically, it was around water as well. It's Ginnie Springs in Florida. And the reason why I didn't particularly like that park is because it was really, really huge. And so it was one of those parks where everybody was on top of each other. And then people just weren't respectful of your site. They were walking in between your site and another site, and just walking through and not really being respectful for the area. And then it was really, really loud. It was more of what I call a party park than anything else. Again, I'll put a link to that particular park in the video as well. So for me, it was not a fun place to be. Okay, this next one comes from Paula, my friend north of the border in Canada. Hi, Paula. She asks, has there ever been a moment where you did not feel safe camping? If so, tell us about it. In my first RV, at one point, I was going to a place in Florida called Camel Lake. It was a place that I had never been to before. It was right after working a lot of hours, almost 24 hours, covering a hurricane, and then I was getting out late at night. Normally, I try to get out, especially with a new park, at daylight, so I can see everything that I'm doing and getting there. But this one, I had to leave at night to get there. And as I was going to the park, I started to lose cell service. I went past this entrance at one point, and then I found the entrance. It came back, and it was down this really, really dirt road. And as I was driving towards the dirt road, there were some folks coming back, in like a Jeep or something, and they looked like they were kind of rowdy. And again, because I didn't know the area, because I didn't know the park, I felt unsafe. So in that situation, I had a couple of options. I could have maybe pulled off to the side because I was kind of in a state park area but I still didn't feel completely safe there. So I ended up turning around and instead of camping for the weekend, stayed at home. But I did make it back to Camel Lake, and it's a really cool park. I'll put a link to both of those trips here as well. But that was the one time that I really didn't feel safe. This question coming from Earl Blackman. David, have you thought about putting on security camera system on your RV since you travel alone in your RV? Well, Earl, I have thought about it, and I won't say whether or not I've done it because I don't want to give anybody an advantage one way or the other. But I have looked into security camera systems for your RV, and it's something that I think that you might want to consider just to have a little peace of mind, especially if you're out from your RV and you go hiking and stuff like that. That way you know whether or not somebody's trying to get in. Next question coming from Tracy Bremer. So David, my wife is a travel nurse, and so we are going to different places every 3 months or so. I have recently found that I get an odor from the black water tank. What, if anything, have you found that helps reduce odor and cleaning of the black water tank between camp locations? Well, Tracy, thank you very much for asking the question. I have a special a cocktail, if you will, that I use every time I store my RV for a while. And again, I'll put a link here. It's one that I got when I first started to RV, and it's the same one I use today, and it still works for me really well. I also use some toilet packets that I will put into the toilet once I get to a location. I'll fill it up with some water, drop in one of these sanitizing, it's kind of like a suppository that you put in there, and that helps while you're there. And then I do the flush out when I leave, and then when I store it, I will use this cocktail. It might work using the cocktail as you drive between locations to help flush it out. And then I also, with my tanks, I have a hose and a connection, an elbow that will allow me to flush out the black tank. And so I do that from time to time to just try and get everything out. And that usually does a pretty good job for me of keeping the odors out. So as I was editing this, I realized I missed one question. So this comes from Stephen Couples, and Stephen asked, best RV accessory you bought? Well, for me, it has to go with when I did my RV renovation and my backsplash. I absolutely love my backsplash and the flooring. Both have really, really improved my RV. But just in general, without a doubt, I think it's my cast iron skillet. I love to chef it up, love to cook on the grill, and having that cast iron skillet has been absolutely fantastic. Helena Collins asks, hey David, have you purchased new tires for your RV? If so, would you talk about RV tire considerations, mounting, brakes, and any other hints and tips? Please, thank you so very much. Well, Helena, yes, I have purchased some tires for my rig, and it was this rig, the Class A. It was a couple years ago. Again, I'll put a link here to how I went about it. For me, I went and looked at an RV place to try and do the tires, and then actually where I went was a truck tire place. They were really good. They got me in and out. But again, in the video, you'll see exactly. And they did a really good job. And then they also let me know how my other tires were. And every time when I go out RVing for the season, I always have my tires checked for just wear and tear. I have the brakes checked. And then I have obviously the air checked so to make sure that I have enough air in my tires. When I bought this RV, it did have a TPS monitoring system. That's a tire pressure monitoring system. But I have to be honest, I haven't figured out how to use it yet. That's one of the things I do want to do, because I know you always have to guard against blowouts. Mark W. asks, I also have an older Class A, and I'm thinking of changing to a Class C. As you started with the Class C, I would like to know your thoughts between the two. Well, for me, I think both are great. I like my Class A right now because, one, I got to do a remodel, and remodeling the Class A was a big thing that I wanted to make sure I had the experience doing. It has 2 slides, and so even though it's a small footprint, relatively small footprint with 29 feet, it slides out and gives me some more space, which I really, really love. It is a big unit to drive, and I miss kind of getting in and out with a Class C. The nimbleness of the Class C is something that I think is really kind of cool. I think depending on the Class C, and you can get a Class C with a slide out bed, which I would really want. I like the idea of that smaller unit, the Class C. I think just you have to find that rig that fits you. And if you are looking at a Class C, see if you can find a friend that maybe has one, and see if you can take it out. Just get an experience for it. I think for me, the Class C is enough space, especially for the kind of RVing that I'm doing. I'm not living in it full time yet. So, part of the reason why I got the Class A was because I thought, at some point in my life, I might want to live in a Class A, or I might want to live full time, and a Class A seemed better. So I like this one a lot. Class C is a really good option as well, but just have to find the things that you really like to make sure that it fits your style. Diana Bergeron asks, and I've heard this one a lot. We have a Class C RV that we bought almost a year ago, still trying to figure out how to stop the clanging noises throughout the rig. Our dog has lots of anxiety over it. Question, how do you control the noise? And what made you decide to move up to a Class A? Again, this is a quick one. The Class A, for me, again, it was because it had slide outs. It was still small, and I wanted a bigger bed. As for the noise, well, you just have to try and, buckle things down the best you can, pack things really tight. Whether it's a Class A or a Class C, there is just a lot of noise that comes with being in an RV. One of the things I've heard from some people is, kind of those thunder blankets that they might help a dog who is traveling, and then it's just getting familiar and getting used to the travel pattern with the animal. So that's all I can suggest. I don't have a dog with me. But I hope you guys find a way to make it all work. Rob Eastwood comments a lot. Hey Rob, how you doing? He asks, how long does it take you on average to hook up your rig once you get to a campsite? Well, I've narrowed it down. It usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes to set up. Here in Wisconsin, it's a little bit different because once you come into the park, that's usually when you want to fill up with your water. Then you find your spot. And then in terms of, I don't count backing into your slot as part of it, but once it's there, I have a pattern. There are things that I do on a regular basis, a routine to set everything up, and so it can usually go 20 to 30 minutes, 30 if I really don't know the area and don't know the park, but even that's long, but for the most part, about 20 minutes to set up everything. Felicia Joy asking an important Star Wars question. Share your experience of seeing Star Wars for the first time. I inherited the love of Star Wars from my dad. That's for your dad. Shout out to him. I'm glad he got you into it. For me, I'll never forget it. I was 13. I'd had an uncle who told me, hey, let's go see this movie. It was hot. I was living in Massachusetts. And so it was an excuse to, go inside to a movie theater, get some air conditioning, some popcorn, and just enjoy something. And I was told it was a Western in outer space. And I was like, I don't know. But the second the credits came on and that John Williams score, and I was hooked. I stayed at that theater and it was amazing. I remember that summer I saw it 13 times in a theater because you had to go back into a theater to go see it. And I immediately started to try and find as many books on special effects filmmaking as I could because I wanted to be a filmmaker. And for me, it was just the perfect blend of special effects, excitement. My dad tells me about these old-time serials growing up that he would go see at the movie theater, and this is essentially what it was, an old-time serial, and I absolutely loved it then and still love it today. Allentown Girl asks, also curious when your love of Star Wars began. It began in 1977 when it came out. It came out in May. I was there in May, and that's where it started for me. I just loved the film from the get-go. I was kind of a theater kid. I also played a lot of sports, and I did a lot of things, but for me, when I saw Star Wars, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, and that was my thing. So I started to watch that film over and over again, learn as much as I could about special effects and filmmaking, saved up and bought my first Super 8 camera. It was a Kmart special. I bought it with my mom, who was living in New York at the time. We got it at one of these funky little stores. I think it was about $25, but back then that was a lot for me, and I started making Super 8 films ever since. So it was a great thing to start my life off and get me really excited about film. All right, Gary. This one coming from Gary V. Who shot first, Han or Greedo? Come on, Gary. We all know the answer to this one. Han. All day, every day. Get over it. K Sherb 1 asking the question, David, maybe this is not so much as a Q&A, but I would love to just hear your background, maybe a little bit about your daughter Sage. I think we are all starting to feel like you are a part of the family and would love to know more about you. I look forward to your future videos. K-Sherb1, thank you very much for dropping the question. This is what I will say about my daughter. Periodically, I will mention her. I will show her when she gives me the permission to show her pictures in my video, but I'm going to leave it at that. She's kind of a private person, and I want to respect her privacy. I love her very much, and she is my pride and joy. So that's what I can say about her. But just in terms of my background, grew up in Massachusetts, have spent some time all over the country, from California as far north as Arcata, California, to as far south as Anaheim. Have lived in a lot of different places in the country, Memphis, Tennessee, to Manhattan, back to California, back to Florida, and now Wisconsin. I love sports, movies, cooking, wine, all of those things. Several years ago, really got into the RVing lifestyle and love it. It's something that I think as long as I'm healthy and can drive, I'm going to do it for many, many years to come. Raymond Mills asking another kind of rando question. Forget about the RV. How are you doing in your new life? You shared in the past job loss, job hunting, and finding a job in Antarctica. Well, for those of you who think I actually live in Antarctica, it's not quite there. I live in Green Bay, in the Green Bay area, and so far I've loved it. It's been really good to me. I like this area, and I've managed to deal with the cold. again, I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm familiar with the cold, so it's not like this was anything new for me. Just in general, things are going well. You know, a lot of work. I'm still trying to figure out the area, find things. It'll be just over a year in November, so that I just can't believe it's been a year. So everything is settling in. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Mrs. Queen B. Hi, David, aka RVJedeye. Yeah, that's me. Knowing that there are people who full-time, how did you feel when you lived in your RV while you were going through the job search? You know, it was interesting. I for those of you who don't know, and I will link it here, last year lost my job, had to find a new job, sold my house, and then while I was selling my house and looking for a job, I lived in my RV. I called it semi full-time, and it was a great experience having the option to do it. It's very different though, because you know, I was waiting to get my next job, and there was a little pressure in terms of trying to find that. So while I enjoyed it, there was still a different kind of sense of living full time. I do think ultimately I could see myself living full time, and I really admire those who are out there doing it. I think as I figure out what will happen in this kind of next phase of my life, I do see a full-time situation down the line. However, I do see it maybe a little differently. I see maybe a small condo or something as a home base that, you know, every couple of months or so I would check into. But you know, 9-10 months of the year being out on the road, living full-time. Hindi Garrison asking, have I ever tailgated at a Packers game yet? The answer is no. However, I did get a chance to go to a Packers game last year when I first got here. My boss was very generous and took me to my first Packers game, and it was amazing. All of the traditions. I got there, it was still cold. It wasn't quite freezing. It wasn't the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. It was cold, but it was a great experience. Actually, I have not tailgated yet in my RV. I have a friend who tailgates all the time, and she's been trying to get me to try it. And when I do, I'm going to look at her channel. I'll put a link here to make sure I know everything I'm supposed to do when I tailgate. And then the final question of this Q&A from Celeste Duville. Do you have a plan for voting this November? 100%. Ever since I turned 18, I have never missed the opportunity to vote. I think it's very, very important, no matter who you vote for, that you get out there and do your duty. So yes, I plan to vote. Because I have an apartment, a sticks and bricks that I live in, I have a residence, so I have a location that I have to vote at. But you better believe it, I will not miss this election and don't plan on missing any election moving forward. Wow, I can't believe we got through everything. Folks, first of all, thank you so very much for taking the time to ask some great questions. I hope you got your answers and you found out a little bit more about me. You know, for me, again, the bottom line, I really, really love RVing and think that this is an amazing thing to do. I hope you guys enjoy RVing or at least finding out more about RVing. It really means a lot to me that you took the time out to ask some questions. And again, thank you very much. Hey, that's going to do it right now for me. Make sure you follow me all over social media at RVJedeye. And then, of course, you can follow me on the blog at RVJedeye.com. Get out there, RV. We'll do another Q&A in the future. Thanks again for this. I hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you out there next time.